Well, this is coming when, there's all of this wealth and you hear about it comes as England is facing rising costs of living, a living crisis, austerity budget cuts, and so on. And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, 500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Don Lemon pushes his woke nonsense once again, and wait until you hear her answer. It absolutely stuns him into embarrassed silence. Make sure to stick with me at the very end of this video when we'll discover what's really behind these absurd calls for racial reparations and how we can all effectively expose that absurdity for all to see. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor. I'm going to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and insane and woke times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, gang, do not wait another day before clicking on that link below to watch what many are saying is one of the most inspirational movies they've ever seen, and that's our very own The Return of the American Patriot. If you want to see with your own eyes the incredible renaissance of patriotism and the defeat of rhino globalists that's happening right now in a state like Pennsylvania, this is your movie. This documentary serves as an example for patriots all over the world to stand up against tyranny, bring effective change in their communities and schools, all the while reinstating faith, family, and freedom at grassroots levels all across the nation. You don't want to miss this. Click on that link below or go to the returnoftheamericanpatriot.com right now to watch this movie while it's still available on demand. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. You are going to love this. CNN's ultra-leftist woke warrior Don Lemon, who of course just got booted from his primetime show and sent to CNN's basement. They'll keep him on, but just as a morning show co-host. I mean, that's embarrassing enough, but nevertheless, he continued to show his rapidly dwindling audience that he remains ever faithful to presenting far-left woke activism as objective journalism. He had on as his guest British commentator Hilary Fordwich to talk about the death of Queen Elizabeth II and where Britain was going from here. And Lemon decided to use the occasion to push this whole absurd and insane notion of monetary reparations for Britain's era of colonialism and their supposed ravaging and enslaving African nations. Now, that question was bad enough. As you heard, he actually called it a serious question, but her response left him utterly dumbfounded. Take a look.
Well, those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely. That's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll continue to discuss in the future.
Did you see his face? Tucker Carlson once said that Don Lemon is the kind of guy who should feel embarrassment, but is incapable of doing so. I love it. It's all in that face. Stunned silence. And of course she's right. From a historical perspective, she's absolutely right. As Dan McLaughlin has recently pointed out in his article for National Review, the colonization of Africa in particular, for right or for wrong, was largely led by the British campaign to actually stamp out slavery at its very source after 1850 over the objection of African kings. We're actually becoming more and more aware, shockingly so, of just how complicit African leaders were in the enslavement of their own people. Now, this is not to justify what the British Empire did. That's not the purpose of understanding the historical events. We're simply trying to get to the bottom of what actually happened. And what happened is that a very powerful 19th century empire saw an opportunity to use their power for what they believe was a good cause, right or wrong. But you see, someone like Don Lemon or a CRT theorist comes along, and what they do is they superimpose on this historical events a theoretical model developed by leftists that recasts those events in light of a prefabricated script centered on the notion of victimhood and oppression. And the irony is that the characters in that script are predeterminatively arranged by virtue of their skin color and their civilization, for heaven's sakes. And that's where you get this utter nonsense being spewed out by Don Lemon and his leftist ilk that you need to pay these people. You see, whenever you're dealing with past events, we have to be very aware of the important distinction between theory and history, okay? The two are not the same, and appreciating their difference is crucial to pushing back against all this woke nonsense. You see, this historical sleight of hand comes to the fore always with CRT, critical race theory. You'll hear the left constantly accuse conservatives who ban CRT from our classrooms that we're constantly accused of wanting to ban the teaching of our students of history and the history of slavery. These bans are bans on history. But of course, that's nonsense. It's nothing more than the fallacy of equivocation. And that's because those laws ban a theory, not history. No one is banning critical race history. We're banning what? Critical race theory. Theory and history are two very, very different things. History, at its simplest level, of course, deals with the study of past events in human affairs, or at least events that impact our human experience. It goes all the way back to the Greek term historia, which originally meant learning through research, interestingly enough. That's history in its most basic sense. Theory is something very different. The purpose of theory is actually to explain. That's the whole rationale for why we employ theory. A theory provides a conceptual paradigm by which lots and lots and lots of otherwise discrepant events can all be pulled together and explained as a coherent and comprehensive whole in terms of their meaning and their significance. That's what we do here every day on this channel. I actually apply multiple levels of theoretical models like post-secular theory and paradigm shift theory a la Thomas Kuhn, and practice theory and postmodern theory, state autonomy theory, neo-tribalist theory. And we try to put them all together in a meta-theoretical paradigm to explain and illuminate current events in light of larger conservative trends. Here is the problem when you're dealing with theory. You guys, you want to write this down, okay? Everyone, including myself, has to be aware of this. To what extent is the theory that I'm superimposing on these events, in this case, historical events, to what extent is that theory explaining those events versus to what extent is that theory exploiting those events? Are you explaining or are you exploiting? In other words, to what extent is our theory not in fact exposing supposedly uncomfortable events in our history, but rather exposing the political biases and agenda of the theorist? That's what every analyst has to be very, very careful about. And of course, as you all know, CRT theorists have thrown care to the wind. They're activists. They exploit history for their own political agendas. What we all have to understand is history is bloody. In Scripture, it's called the fall. The loss of our original paradise is not just the loss of a place. It's the loss of our original genuine personhood. We ourselves lost the flourishing of what was most noble and good and praiseworthy in our humanity. And the reversal of that tragedy is, of course, the historic role of religion, which is to reawaken, to give new birth to our souls and our bodies so as to allow our humanity to flourish once again. So this is particularly evident in the Christian faith, which puts the cross in the place of the original tree of life. The cross now provides the means by which our humanity can once again blossom akin to life in our primeval paradise. So humanity is fallen. Humanity is therefore unbelievably brutal. No one escapes the fall. No one. And so within those fallen conditions, history plays out in a very complex manner. And bravo to this very brave and clear-thinking British commentator for shining such significant clarity and light in the bleak of Le Mans' left-wing darkness. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on how Putin's annexation of much of eastern Ukraine has just destroyed the liberal world order. You are not going to want to miss that, so make sure to click on that link, and I will see you over there. God bless.